Commander Velk had stopped sleeping. He sat in the cold war room of the Zelvar flagship, staring at dark screens and silent maps. Ships were going dark across the galaxy, one by one. No explosions, no survivors, just gone. The war they thought they had won was changing. It wasn't a war anymore. It was something worse. In the last 3 days, over a dozen ships vanished. No signs of a battle. No emergency beacons. Velk now knew the truth. The outpost they had destroyed wasn't a command center. It was bait, a trap set by humanity's Recon unit. They had watched, studied, and tested Zelvar's strength. Now, it seemed, Phase 3 had begun. In the shadow of a gas giant, Scout Ship 42 drifted alone. Its crew of 20 had just finished a scan sweep. Everything seemed quiet. Too quiet. Captain Drela walked the halls with a small squad. They didn't trust the silence. After what happened to the other ships, no one did. Then a sound echoed in the hallway. Click, click, click. It wasn't loud, but it felt sharp, like it cut through the air. Drela raised her weapon. Who's there? No answer. Her second in command, a young soldier named Pell, stepped forward to check. He turned the corner and vanished. Not a sound, not a scream, just gone. The team rushed forward, but found nothing. No blood, no sign of a fight. Just Pell's weapon, still warm, lying on the floor. Back on the flagship, Velk received the report. Another crew member lost. Velk clenched his fists. They're inside our systems. They're watching every step we take. Ralvik, pale and shaking, approached with a new message. Commander, we decoded the rest of the human transmission. Velk leaned in. The screen flickered. The human voice returned. Calm, slow, cold. You faced shadows, and they scared you. But shadows are just the beginning. We were watching, learning. Now Phase 3 begins. The screen flashed red. The real army is still sleeping. But we are the ones who wake it. The screen went dark. Ralvik looked up. What does that mean? What real army? Velk didn't answer. He already feared the truth. If this was just the Recon unit, then humanity's true strength was still hidden. Somewhere out there. And it was waking up. In the Zelvar capital on the homeworld, leaders gathered in panic. They called Velk by secure line. This is madness, the High General shouted. A Recon unit cannot cause this. Velk stared at the screen. Then explain where our fleets are going. Explain why our strongest ships are silent. They must have help, another general argued. Some new weapon. Velk shook his head. No, they're not using weapons. They're using fear. In deep space, near the edge of the quadrant, 3 alien cruisers traveled together. Each carried thousands of troops. Without warning, one cruiser lost contact. The other 2 turned to help. But by the time they arrived, the cruiser was empty. No bodies, no damage, just empty halls. And a message burned into the main screen. You should have listened when we said, this wasn't our war. Back in the flagship, Velk made a choice. No more waiting. We fight now. We strike the human systems before they come. Ralvik hesitated. But Commander, we don't know where they are. Velk looked at him. Then we find out. Use old maps. Search their hidden colonies. If they won't show us the real army, we'll force them out. But what if that's what they want? Ralvik asked. Velk stopped. He hadn't thought of that. What if all this fear, this destruction, was to push the Zelvar into making the first move? What if Phase 3 was a trap? Just then, a new alert appeared on the screen. A message broadcasted across every Zelvar frequency. It wasn't a code. It wasn't a threat. It was a countdown. 72 o'clock, 00. 71, 59. 59. 71, 59, 58. Velk stood in silence. A timer. A message from the humans. Phase 3 had begun. And whatever was coming next would arrive in exactly 3 days. 00:00. The countdown hit 0. No explosion. No blast. Just silence. A cold, unnatural silence across the galaxy. Then, slowly, the sky changed. In every star system, on every planet, the stars began to fade. One by one, they vanished from the night sky, swallowed by something invisible. Commander Velk stood at the center of his flagship's bridge. What's happening? No one answered, because no one could. The gate, the massive ring-shaped structure that had appeared at the galaxy's edge, began to glow. Soft at first, then blinding. It didn't fire a weapon. It didn't send a fleet. It simply opened, a massive tear in space, like the sky itself being ripped apart. And from that rip came nothing. No ships, no troops, just a wave. Invisible, yet unstoppable. The wave swept across space like a silent scream. Systems blinked out. Stars dimmed. Engines died. On one colony, people watched the night sky go black. Then their machines stopped working. Then their thoughts started changing. The wave wasn't just physical. It was mental. It touched minds. It peeled back memories. All across the Zelvar Empire, people dropped to their knees, crying, shaking, some whispering strange words they'd never heard before. One soldier muttered, "We've been watched since birth." Another screamed, "We were never meant to win." Velk grabbed the command console. "What is this? What are they doing to us?" Drela turned to him slowly. Her voice had changed. "They're not attacking, sir. They're unlocking." "Unlocking what?" She looked at him with wide, blank eyes. "You." Suddenly, Velk saw it. Images, not his. Memories that didn't belong to him. The burning world. Humans walking through fire. Not dying. Becoming. Metal fused with flesh. Minds linked by something greater. A force beyond understanding. They weren't just soldiers. They were a hive. A purpose. A punishment. The Recon unit that the Zelvar Empire had destroyed. That had only been a test. A warning. But it had also been a signal. Not to humans. To the deeper part of humanity. The part they had hidden. The part the galaxy feared. And now it was awake. The gate fully opened. And then they came. Not ships. Not armies. But echoes. Dark human silhouettes that moved like shadows but burned like stars. Their faces were masked. Their eyes were empty. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Where they passed, time broke. Planets cracked. Thoughts twisted. Not with violence, but with truth. And the truth was terrifying. Humanity had never needed to conquer the galaxy. They had already outgrown it. The Recon unit. Just old tech. Just scouts. The real force. It was evolution itself. Humanity had become something else. Something no empire could touch. Something that had no borders. No planets. No fear. They weren't coming for revenge. They were coming to reset everything. Velk dropped to his knees. He finally understood. That first message. This is mercy. It had been real. This, what was happening now? This was what happened when mercy ran out. All over the galaxy, Zelvar fleets surrendered without a fight. But there was no one to accept the surrender. The human force didn't speak, didn't capture, didn't rule. They simply erased. Worlds that had led the war. Gone. Not bombed. Not destroyed. Just removed. As if they were never there. And then, after the last echo passed through, the sky began to light up again. Stars returned. The systems that remained were quiet. Power returned. But things were different. Velk opened his eyes. He was alive. So was Drela. So was the crew. But something inside all of them had changed. They didn't feel like enemies of Earth anymore. They felt like students who had just survived a lesson. The gate, far at the galaxy's edge, began to close. A final message played, once on every screen, in every language. You asked what happened to the real army. You met it. Now remember. Then silence. Real silence. For the first time in years, peace. Not because the war was over, but because no one would dare start another. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity didn't win with weapons. They won with patience, with planning, and with something far more terrifying than force. Purpose. Velk stood slowly. What do we do now? Drela asked. Velk looked up at the stars. So normal now. So calm. He answered, we rebuild. Drela nodded. And if they ever come back? Velk didn't smile. They never left. Somewhere, far beyond what sensors could see, the human force waited again. Silent. Watching. Not to rule, but to make sure the lesson was never forgotten. Because this time, they didn't just defeat an empire. They rewrote the rules, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The alien soldiers marched through the smoking ruins of Outpost Gamma 4. The air was thick with ash and heat. Fires burned across broken buildings. The smell of metal and melted machines filled the sky. The Zelvar Dominion had done it. They had crushed the last human outpost in this sector. Commander Velk stood at the center of the battlefield, his armor shining red in the setting sun. His troops surrounded him, cheering. Giant screens lit up across the fleet with one message: victory confirmed. Humans defeated. The soldiers laughed. They raised their weapons into the air. For years, the war against humanity had drained their resources, tested their strength, and filled their minds with fear. Humans were strange. They didn't always fight like other species. Sometimes they disappeared from battlefields. Sometimes they lured enemies into strange traps. But now it was over, or so the aliens believed. Velk stepped forward and looked around. Is this all they had? He asked quietly. His second-in-command, Ralvik, nodded. Only light resistance. A few drones. No tanks. No heavy weapons. No fleet support. Velk narrowed his eyes. Strange. A final outpost, and no real army. Ralvik shrugged. Maybe they were weak in the end. But Velk wasn't so sure. He had fought humans before. He had seen how dangerous they were, how they fought differently. Not always stronger, but always unpredictable. And something about this victory didn't feel right. Inside the outpost, alien engineers searched for human tech. They expected powerful weapons or data centers. Instead, they found half-broken screens, old wires, and dummy control panels. Almost everything was fake. One engineer tapped on a wall. It was hollow. Behind it, they found a secret room, but it was empty. No soldiers, no weapons, just a small blinking device on the floor. It repeated one message again and again. Observation complete. Phase 1 ended. The engineer showed it to Velk. The commander stared at the message. What does this mean? Ralvik asked. Velk didn't answer. He turned to the communications officer. Did we track any escape ships? No, the officer replied. No signs of retreat. No life pods. Nothing left alive. Velk looked up at the sky. The stars above were quiet. No human ships. No warnings. No fight. Just silence. It felt wrong. Later that night, while the alien army celebrated across the fleet, a lone Zelvar scout sat near the edge of the outpost, scanning through human recordings left behind. One file played automatically. It showed a human soldier speaking calmly into a helmet camera. If you're watching this, the human said, you think you've won. You think this outpost mattered. You think you faced the real army. But you didn't. This wasn't our war. This was our test. The video glitched. Then it continued. You fought shadows. You fought scouts. You fought silence. But you never saw the real force. You never faced Earth's fury. The screen went black. The scout froze. He quickly sent the video to his superiors. Within minutes, Velk was watching it. The celebration had stopped. Could this be real? Ralvik whispered. Velk's face was pale. This wasn't their army. This was something else. A recon unit, maybe. A setup. Just then, a new alert flashed across the main screen. One of their own patrol ships, Station K-17, had gone offline. Velk's eyes widened. Replay surveillance. The footage showed the patrol ship drifting in space. Then the lights went out. A black shape appeared on screen. Small, fast, and silent. It latched onto the ship. A moment later, the feed cut off. No explosion. No warning. Just complete silence. They're testing us, Velk said. They left this outpost for us on purpose. To see how we respond. To see how fast we move. This whole thing. It's bait. Another alert came through. This time, a listening post near a gas giant was destroyed. No ships had entered the area. No weapon signatures. Just a blackout. Velk stood straight. Stop the celebrations. Prepare defenses. Now. But it was too late. On one of the main capital ships, soldiers were already reporting strange activity. Doors opening and closing without command. Lights flickering. Systems glitching. Then the power died. And in the dark hallway, a shadow moved. It wasn't Zelvar. It wasn't anything they recognized. It moved fast. It made no sound. It left behind only a sign, painted in red. We are coming. Back on the surface, Velk stood alone, staring into the sky. He now understood. This battle was never about the outpost. It was about the response. It was about timing. The humans had never sent their real army. They sent a recon unit. And now that the aliens had taken the bait, the real war was about to begin. The timer didn't stop. Every Zelvar ship, every screen on every planet, now showed the countdown. Giant red numbers ticking down. Hour by hour, minute by minute. A silent threat. It had been over 24 hours, and still, no one knew what would happen when the clock hit zero. On the Zelvar homeworld, panic spread like fire. Cities were full of fear. People ran through the streets. Some tried to leave the planet. Others hid in bunkers. Children asked what the numbers meant. No one had answers. In space, Commander Velk stood in silence aboard the flagship. His face was pale. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. Any changes in the signal? He asked the crew. None, sir, said a young officer. The message is being sent from dozens of unknown points. We can't trace them. We can't block them. Ralvik looked up. It's not a warning anymore, sir. It's a promise. Velk turned to the main screen, where the countdown continued. 47-12-33. 47-12-32. 47-12-31. The humans had never sent a fleet. No armies. No drones. Just whispers, and now this clock. Some Zelvar commanders thought it was a bluff. Others wanted to strike back immediately. But every time they tried to launch ships, something went wrong. Engines failed. Power cores overheated. Ships lost navigation. It was like the humans were already inside every system. Velk ordered a meeting of his top captains. They gathered in the war room, surrounded by maps of the galaxy. Listen to me, Velk said. We cannot wait for the clock to hit zero. Whatever happens then, it will be worse than anything we've seen. Captain Drela, who had returned from the haunted scout ship 42, nodded slowly. Sir, I agree. I saw what they can do. They don't fight to win. They fight to break you from the inside. But where do we hit? Another captain asked. We don't even know where they are. A young communications officer rushed into the room. Commander, we received a signal from a human channel. Velk stood quickly, put it on screen. The video started. It was dark, just a black room. Then a face appeared, a human face. He looked calm. His eyes were cold. He spoke slowly. "Your leaders still don't understand. We didn't come to fight you. We came to test you. You failed. You didn't face our army. You faced scouts. Recon. Ghosts. You saw fear. You called it victory." The man leaned closer to the camera. "The real army wakes in 40 hours. This was never a war. It was a sentence." The screen went black. Everyone in the room stood still. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Velk said, "We need to strike before they do." Drela looked unsure. "But how, sir? Every time we try to move, something breaks." Velk took a breath. "Then we go silent. No signals, no comms. We move in the old way, manually." He pointed at a distant part of the map. A dead zone. No communication, no colonies. "This sector, old human space, abandoned years ago. We send a fleet. Small, fast, quiet. If the real army is hiding, they're hiding there." Ralvik raised a hand. "And what if we're walking into another trap?" Velk looked at him. "Then we die fighting, not waiting." The fleet moved in silence. No signals, no broadcasts. 5 ships flew deep into the dark sector. Hours passed. No contact. Then one ship, Fracture Blade, sent a short, coded message. It was only 2 words. "They're here." And then, silence. No more messages, no more readings. The other 4 ships turned back, terrified. Velk stared at the screen, the words burning into his mind. "They're here." He opened the countdown again. 39 o'clock, 00, 38:59:59. Back on the Zelvar homeworld, skies turned red. Not from fire, but from strange signals hitting the atmosphere. Satellites failed. Power grids crashed. Cities lost light. In the darkness, more human messages played. Everywhere. Even on personal devices. "You still don't understand. We were never trying to win. We were waiting. The timer isn't the beginning of the war. It's the end." Children cried. Soldiers prayed. Leaders hid. Velk stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the red glow in the sky above the capital. Ralvik whispered, "Sir, what do we do now?" Velk closed his eyes and answered, "We wait, but not like them. We wait with weapons ready." Commander Velk didn't sleep. No one on the flagship did. Every hour felt heavier. Every second louder. The Zelvar Empire had never known fear like this. Velk stared at the red numbers on the main screen. 23 hours left. He spoke into the silence. "Has the scout fleet returned?" Ralvik answered slowly, "No, sir. Not a single ship. No signal. Just like the others." Another loss. Another mystery. And still no sign of the so-called real army. Then the alert blared. A signal. Not human. Not Zelvar. Something new. Everyone turned to the screens. A strange transmission appeared. Blurry. Distorted. It wasn't a video. It was movement. Giant shapes. Rows and rows of machines. Walking. Marching. Each one larger than a warship. Metal giants, tall as towers, glowing with blue energy. "Where is this?" Velk demanded. "We don't know." The tech officer shouted. "It's not from any known system." "But sir, they're moving." Velk's blood ran cold. Then the army is real. More images followed. Ships bigger than cities. Weapons never seen before. Planets with blackened skies. And human forces training under red suns. One thing was clear. These were not soldiers of peace. These were destroyers. The Recon unit had been only shadows. Now the monsters behind the curtain were waking. 21-5, 12, 21-5, 11. 21:5:10. At the same time, chaos spread across the galaxy. Entire planets went dark. Civilian ships vanished. Fleets sent to investigate never returned. In a hidden corner of the galaxy, a Zelvar science vessel tried to scan the source of the countdown signal. The lead scientist, Telra, ran tests for hours. Then she froze. "Sir," she whispered to her captain, "this signal, it's not just a countdown. It's a beacon. A beacon." She nodded. "It's waking something." The message wasn't just for the Zelvar. It was also for them, the real army. And whatever was sleeping was almost ready. Back on the flagship, Velk paced the command deck. "They're not even attacking," he muttered. "They're waiting." "Why?" Captain Drela stepped forward. "Because they don't need to rush. They know we've already lost." Velk clenched his fists. "No, not yet. We still have strength. We still have ships." A loud sound interrupted him, like a deep hum, vibrating the walls. The crew covered their ears. Lights flickered. Then everything stopped. A red dot appeared on the star map. Then another. Then 10 more. Within seconds, hundreds of red dots filled the screen. Drela whispered, "What are those?" Velk's voice was quiet. "Ships. But they're not moving. They don't have to." The red dots were the human fleet, silent, still, waiting just outside known space. Not attacking, just watching. Holding position. "They want us to see them," Ralvik said. "They want us to know." Then, for the first time, one of the human ships sent a message. It was only 3 words. "This is mercy." Silence followed. Velk stared in disbelief. Mercy? What kind of mercy involved wiping out entire fleets, destroying systems, and terrifying planets? And still, he felt it. They could have attacked already. They chose not to. For now. Elsewhere, a small Zelvar defense post picked up strange signals underground. They investigated, digging deep into the rock. And there, buried in silence, they found it. A machine. Massive. Old. But humming with life. It wasn't of Zelvar design. It was human. A part of the real army, planted long ago, waiting for this moment. The soldiers tried to destroy it. They failed. The machine woke up. It broadcasted the countdown again. Louder, stronger, clearer. 17 o'clock. 00. 16:59:59. 16:59:58. All across the galaxy, machines like that one woke up. Old weapons. Hidden soldiers. Sleeping giants. The human Recon unit had prepared the way. Now, the true force was rising. Back in the flagship, Velk gave a quiet order. "Send a message." "To who?" Ralvik asked. Velk looked tired. "To Earth." The crew went silent. "No Zelvar has ever spoken to Earth directly," Ralvik said. "Are you sure?" Velk nodded. "Yes. We have to try." They sent a message. No answer. They tried again. Still nothing. Then, a single message returned. A voice. Cold. Calm. Human. "You finally speak, but it's not your turn anymore. You will watch. And then you will fall." The signal ended. Ralvik turned to Velk. "Sir, what do we do?" Velk answered slowly. "We pray that clock stops before it hits 0. The halls of the Zelvar battleship were quiet. Too quiet. Lights flickered. Air vents hissed. Soldiers walked in groups now. No one moved alone. Fear crawled through every corridor. Something was wrong, but no one could explain it. They had won the war. They had crushed the last human outpost. But ever since that victory, things had started to change. First, Station K-17 disappeared. Then the listening post near the gas giant went dark. Now, one of the Zelvar capital ships had lost all contact. No explosions, no signals, just gone. Commander Velk stood in the main control room of the flagship. His eyes were fixed on a screen that showed the last image from the missing ship, a black shape in the distance, small, fast, and silent. No one knew what it was. No one wanted to. Velk turned to his officers. Send scout teams. Find that thing. Ralvik, his second in command, hesitated. Sir, I don't think it's just one thing. I think there are many. I think they're inside already. Velk's face went pale. Explain. Ralvik nodded to a tech officer. The officer pulled up video from a storage deck on their own ship, just from an hour ago. The footage showed 2 Zelvar guards walking down the hallway. Then, the lights blinked once. When they turned back on, the guards were gone. No sound, no struggle, just missing. Then something moved in the corner of the video. A shape, thin, human-sized. But the camera glitched before it became clear. Velk clenched his fists. This ship is on lockdown. No one goes in or out without my order. Another officer spoke up. Sir, we just found this on Deck 9. He handed Velk a small human device, cold, metal, and pulsing with a blue light. Velk stared at it. There were no buttons, no controls, just one glowing symbol, a circle with a line through it. Ralvik stepped back. That's the same mark seen at the last destroyed base. Suddenly, the ship's power flickered. The lights died. Alarms stayed silent. Everything turned dark. Velk drew his weapon. Get lights back online. Now. But no one responded. Then, a voice echoed through the darkness. A human voice. Not loud. Calm. Flat. You celebrated too soon. Velk turned toward the sound. Who's there? No answer. Only silence. Then another voice, this time from a speaker above them. This is only Phase 2. You invaded our borders. You bombed our homes. You thought the Recon unit was the full force, but you never met the real army. Not yet. Ralvik's hands trembled. They're inside the ship. Velk whispered, No, they're inside the fleet. Suddenly, the lights snapped back on. But the room had changed. 5 officers were gone. Their chairs empty. No signs of struggle. Just 5 cold metal coins left behind, each one marked with the same human symbol. Velk grabbed the edge of the table. They're playing with us. They want us afraid. Ralvik nodded. It's working. Across the galaxy, more ships started to report strange signs. Automatic doors opening on their own. Weapons malfunctioning. Entire squads going silent. Strange messages playing over comms. Human voices speaking in calm, cold tones. Phase 2 has begun. We're not attacking. We're testing. Zelvar troops panicked. Some tried to leave their posts. Others begged for orders. But Velk had none to give. He didn't know where the enemy was. He didn't know how many there were. He didn't even know how they were getting into his ships. And that was the worst part. They weren't fighting a visible army. They were fighting ghosts. On one distant mining planet, a soldier named Krell stumbled into the control center alone. His entire unit had vanished. No signs of blood. No gunfire. Just silence. He looked at the main console and found a single message playing over and over again. You never fought us. You fought shadows. Behind him, something moved. He turned quickly, but no one was there. Only a faint sound like breathing. And then, a whisper. Phase 3 is coming. Back on the flagship, Velk stared at the black sky outside the window. No ships, no lights, but he knew they were out there, watching, waiting. He opened a secure channel. Command to all fleets. We are under silent attack. This is not over. Prepare for war. Then he added one final message. If this was just a recon unit, what comes next will destroy us. The countdown was almost over. 4:00, 00, 3:59:59. 3:59:58. The galaxy held its breath. On the Zelvar homeworld, skies turned gray. Not from weather, but from thousands of silent objects entering the upper atmosphere. They weren't dropping bombs. They weren't shooting. They just hovered. People looked up. What they saw would be remembered forever. Black shapes. Too many to count. Each one was different. Some long and sharp like knives, others like spinning wheels of metal. Silent. Waiting. Commander Velk stood on his bridge. Are those ships? Drela stared at the screen. No, sir. There's something else. Weapons, maybe. Or a message. Velk turned to his crew. Any communication? Nothing, said the officer. Just the countdown. Louder now. It's being broadcast on every channel. The red numbers flashed everywhere. 3:30:00, 3:29:59, 3:29:58. On a moon base near Zelvar space, soldiers tried to scan the black shapes. Their computers froze. One by one, the base's systems shut down. Doors locked. Lights failed. Then the base commander saw something worse. His reflection in the control screen. Behind him, in the dark glass, someone else was standing. He turned around. No one was there. But something had entered, and the base went silent. Back on the flagship, Velk received hundreds of distress signals. Colonies, stations, ships, all reporting the same thing. No attacks, no bombs, just presence. A quiet kind of terror. Then, a human voice spoke again across all channels. We gave you time. We gave you warning. You took it as weakness. Now, you will learn. The voice was not angry. It was calm. Controlled. Like a judge reading a sentence. Drela whispered, "They were never scared of us. Not even once." Velk's face was tight. They never needed to be. Suddenly, the red dots on the star map began to move. The real army was no longer waiting. Massive human ships, silent for days, powered up all at once. Their energy readings exploded across the galaxy. Zelvar tracking systems couldn't keep up. Each human ship moved faster than light, but not by bending space. They broke it. The laws of physics screamed. Stars around them twisted. The ships didn't travel through space. They cut through it, like a knife through paper. Velk's eyes widened. How? How can they do that? Ralvik answered quietly. Because we've been fighting with swords, and they've had fire. The human fleet didn't go for the main Zelvar worlds. They didn't attack cities. Instead, they destroyed the space between. Warp lanes, trade routes, communication beacons. The invisible strings that held the Zelvar Empire together were burned away, without firing at civilians, without hitting a single planet. They shut down the Empire. Within 2 hours, the Zelvar military was blind. Ships couldn't talk. Colonies couldn't call for help. Fleets were lost. But the countdown kept going. 1:00, 00, 0:59:59, 0:59:58. Velk looked around the bridge. Get me a connection to anything. Any system still online. The techs tried everything. No response. Everything was dark. Drela stepped close. Sir, I think we now understand. Understand what? Velk asked. Drela pointed at the countdown. It's not their attack clock. It's our funeral bell. At the edge of the galaxy, something massive appeared. Larger than a planet. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a station. It was a structure. Round, spinning slowly, covered in rooms and energy symbols no one understood. It blocked light. Made stars behind it disappear. A final message came from it. One sentence. This is the gate. You will not survive its opening. Velk stared. What do they mean? No one answered. Because no one knew. The countdown reached the final moments. 01:00, 0 o'clock, 59, 0 o'clock, 58. Children on the Zelvar homeworld cried. Parents hugged them tightly. Some people prayed. Others screamed. A strange silence spread through every ship and planet. It felt heavy, like the galaxy itself was waiting. Velk stood straight. No more panic in his voice. Whatever happens next, record it. Let others learn. Let someone remember. Drela nodded, eyes wet. Yes, sir. The final seconds flashed. 0 o'clock, 05. 0 o'clock, 04. 0 o'clock, 03. 0 o'clock, 02. 0 o'clock, 01. And then 0 o'clock, 00. The countdown hit 0. No explosion, no blast, just silence. A cold, unnatural silence across the galaxy. Then, slowly, the sky changed. In every star system, on every planet, the stars began to fade. One by one, they vanished from the night sky, swallowed by something invisible. Commander Velk stood at the center of his flagship's bridge. What's happening? No one answered, because no one could. The gate, the massive ring-shaped structure that had appeared at the galaxy's edge, began to glow. Soft at first, then blinding. It didn't fire a weapon. It didn't send a fleet. It simply opened. A massive tear in space, like the sky itself being ripped apart. And from that rip came nothing. No ships, no troops. Just a wave. Invisible, yet unstoppable. The wave swept across space like a silent scream. Systems blinked out, stars dimmed, engines died. On one colony, people watched the night sky go black. Then their machines stopped working. Then their thoughts started changing. The wave wasn't just physical. It was mental. It touched minds. It peeled back memories. All across the Zelvar Empire, people dropped to their knees, crying, shaking, some whispering strange words they'd never heard before. One soldier muttered, "We've been watched since birth." Another screamed, "We were never meant to win." Velk grabbed the command console. "What is this? What are they doing to us?" Drela turned to him slowly. Her voice had changed. "They're not attacking, sir. They're unlocking." "Unlocking what?" She looked at him with wide, blank eyes. "You." Suddenly, Velk saw it. Images. Not his. Memories that didn't belong to him. The burning world. Humans walking through fire. Not dying. Becoming. Metal fused with flesh. Minds linked by something greater. A force beyond understanding. They weren't just soldiers. They were a hive. A purpose. A punishment. The Recon unit that the Zelvar Empire had destroyed. That had only been a test. A warning. But it had also been a signal. Not to humans. To the deeper part of humanity. The part they had hidden. The part the galaxy feared. And now it was awake. The gate fully opened. And then they came. Not ships. Not armies. But echoes. Dark human silhouettes that moved like shadows but burned like stars. Their faces were masked. Their eyes were empty. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Where they passed, time broke. Planets cracked. Thoughts twisted. Not with violence, but with truth. And the truth was terrifying. Humanity had never needed to conquer the galaxy. They had already outgrown it. The Recon unit. Just old tech. Just scouts. The real force. It was evolution itself. Humanity had become something else. Something no empire could touch. Something that had no borders. No planets. No fear. They weren't coming for revenge. They were coming to reset everything. Velk dropped to his knees. He finally understood. That first message. This is mercy. It had been real. This, what was happening now. This was what happened when mercy ran out. All over the galaxy, Zelvar fleets surrendered without a fight. But there was no one to accept the surrender. The human force didn't speak, didn't capture, didn't rule. They simply erased. Worlds that had led the war. Gone. Not bombed. Not destroyed. Just removed, as if they were never there. And then, after the last echo passed through, the sky began to light up again. Stars returned. The systems that remained were quiet. Power returned. But things were different. Velk opened his eyes. He was alive. So was Drela. So was the crew. But something inside all of them had changed. They didn't feel like enemies of Earth anymore. They felt like students who had just survived a lesson. The gate, far at the galaxy's edge, began to close. A final message played, once, on every screen, in every language. You asked what happened to the real army. You met it. Now remember. Then silence. Real silence. For the first time in years. Peace. Not because the war was over, but because no one would dare start another. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity didn't win with weapons. They won with patience, with planning, and with something far more terrifying than force. Purpose. Velk stood slowly. What do we do now? Drela asked. Velk looked up at the stars. So normal now. So calm. He answered, we rebuild. Drela nodded. And if they ever come back? Velk didn't smile. They never left. Somewhere, far beyond what sensors could see, the human force waited again. Silent. Watching. Not to rule, but to make sure the lesson was never forgotten. Because this time, they didn't just defeat an empire. They rewrote the rules, and the galaxy would never be the same again.